He's a billionaire, an industrialist, and a philanthropist.
What he shares in common with us is his pure passion and love for cars. I should have been wearing one Gayatri Devi chiffon sari today, no? For flying in the air. Welcome to another thrilling episode of History on Wheels, brought to you by Vredestein Tyres. I'm Renuka Kirpalani, and I'm going to take you on a remarkable journey about an iconic car and its owner. Well, talking about journeys, we have to talk about a part of a car that really keeps us safe and comfortable on our journeys, and that's where these Vredestein tyres come into play. Talking about Vredestein, their journey has been remarkable as well. They started way back in 1909 making bicycle tyres. From bicycle tyres to ultra-high performance tyres, Vredestein has had a long history of innovation which has made it a global powerhouse today. Well, we've got an incredible journey today, and I'm a driving enthusiast. So for me, it's critical to have a great set of wheels which will keep me comfortable, give me loads of performance and grip. So we're all set to go on our journey today, but before I do, we've got something really fun for our guests today. It's a special surprise. If they answer some fun and quirky questions of us, they get to win a super special hamper. So let's get going. The car on today's episode, let me rephrase that. It's not a car, I'm talking about a legacy of luxury and performance, a legacy of timeless beauties, of cars that spoke to your heart, that made heads turn and people lust after them even today. I'm talking about the Mercedes Benz SL class and its rich heritage. The history of this SL goes way back to 1954 when the first SL, the 300 SL, was launched. So what really is SL? Sports licht, super licht, and that was a debate for a very long time. Sports light or super light? Well, Mercedes themselves clarified this to be super light in 2017. Over the years, there have been many variants of this car, and I am proud to say that almost every variant is owned in India. Whether we talk about the older ones or the ones up to today, we can see almost every variant but one. And I'll talk about that a little later in this episode. But these cars were really icons of their times. I mean, whichever variant we talk about was lapped up by royalty, it was lapped up by Bollywood, by Hollywood. Just about everybody wanted to own one. I mean, look at this car. Wouldn't you want to own one? It all started way back in 1954 with the W198 or the 300 SL, and that was an iconic car because it had those beautiful gull-wing doors which was just drop-dead gorgeous. Of course, later a roadster version came with the regular passenger doors, and one of these is owned by the Gondal family in India. Now, after the 198 came the 121, which is the 190 SL, which is the car we have on today's show, so I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then after that, we had the W113, which was the pagoda top. And it got that funny name because it had this concave roof, and it was actually popularized by John Lennon, who owned one of these, and the 230 SL was the one to own. Well, next came the R107, and this was famous because it was the first one to have the V8 engine. And the 450 SL was the car to have because it won many racing events. After that came the R129. Now I'm smiling because this is a car that you all have probably seen in the movie Dil Chahta Hai. It was the first car to get that hydraulic convertible soft top, and did you know it was based off the W124 or the E-Class at that time. And then came the R230. Now this was the first SL to be sold in India. It had those iconic peanut-shaped headlamps, and it had that retractable hard top which was just an eyeball magnet. Every time it went up and down, people couldn't stop staring. After the R230 came the R231. Now this is the only car that's not currently owned in India. The R231 was famous for a unique feature. They used the aluminium of the body to create a sound chamber in the front footwell to give you more bass in the car. After the R231 came the current day R232 that you see on Indian roads. Well, the SL class may be all about flamboyance and flair, but the guest on our show is a little bit more understated than that. See this stud farm? Well, it's owned by him.
He's a billionaire, an industrialist, and a philanthropist.
Meet Yohan Poonawalla. What he shares in common with us is his pure passion and love for cars. He has a garage that is enviable, not only of modern day cars, but of old, vintage and classic cars as well. In fact, it is an award-winning collection. Now today he's bringing a very special car for us on this show. This is a car that was owned by Maharani Gayatri Devi, and she also loved cars and horses. Welcome to History on Wheels, brought to you by Vredestein Tyres. Thank you so much for being here with your
pleasure.
Beautiful 190 SL. And I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions about this car. But before that, I want to go back a little bit. How did your love for cars begin? Like, where did that passion spring from?
Well, it's an inherent passion, I would put, childhood passion. One, really, you either have the passion for cars or you don't.
True.
And I have it, and I'm lucky that I think my children have inherited the passion.
Yeah.
So they will take my legacy forward. I remember sitting on a E-Type Jaguar V12 coupe that was owned by my family when I was 3 or 4 years old. I think that's probably when the passion ignited.
Yeah. And then which was that first car that you dreamt of owning? You said, okay, that passion was ignited. Was it a Jag you wanted to own, or was it something else?
Ferrari maybe.
Like all little boys, I
yes,
think, with
dream,
with the dream on that. Did you also put posters up on your wall and like have many books on cars and things like that?
I had many books, but no posters,
No posters
really.
on the wall.
So this car was originally owned by Maharani Gayatri Devi of Jaipur. So the history, the provenance, and I was very lucky to maybe acquire this car 15, 16 years back. And actually I didn't even know the history at that time. And she was just part of my collection for a very long time until I dwelled into the history of the car and found out that it's actually owned by the Maharani herself.
Yeah. Iconic. I mean, I can imagine her in one of her chiffon saris flying down the roads in one of these cars. It's really amazing. And she shares your passion for horses as well, Maharani Gayatri Devi, and this car. But tell me, when you acquired it, was it in a beat-up condition? Did you have to do a lot of restoration work on this car?
That was a restoration number 1, as I would put it, in silver shade, which wasn't the original blue. This is the Jaipur state color.
Okay.
So a couple of years, or 3 or 4 years back, when I decided to take her back to her original state, as I like to do with all of my cars, they should be as the cars actually came out of the factory, in the color, in the correct shade of color, in the upholstery, in all the little other bits and pieces.
Spoken like a true connoisseur and collector of cars, because that ultimately is it, and I guess that's what wins you the many awards that you win with all these cars of yours. But so was it hard to find the things you needed for these cars? Because let's face it, I mean, when we get old, we need a lot of work on ourselves. I mean, we also get old and rickety, and I imagine that happens with these cars as well. So they must need a lot of consistent work. So is it hard to get those parts and work on these cars, and is that what takes so much time for them to restore?
Yeah, it's very difficult. I had to import all the parts from America and Germany. It's a tedious process, but it's part of the fun of owning these cars and the passion behind it.
And do you often sit late at night and scour and look around for parts and for things and say, oh, I found this for my car? Is that something that you do?
Yeah, I do. I think all car lovers do.
How often do you take this car out and drive it?
Well, not very often, but between the various cars, each car has its day, and I try to go out as much as I can.
now that you have this 190 SL, the iconic 190 SL, what about it? I mean, the design, yes, because all the SLs, I think, through their years have been iconic in their design language. But what are the special parts about this car that you like? I mean, we can walk around it and you can show me the details that you really enjoy in this car.
What I really want is a 300 gullwing.
And are you planning to get one of those soon?
It's on my bucket list. So we'll see.
Maybe soon we'll have another SL in this country. Yeah, but I mean, truly these cars were iconic in their design. I can see you've done, all the chrome work.
The chrome work, the paint.
Meticulously, it's like looking like brand spanking new from the factory.
The lights and the indicator lights. Just look at the bonnet, the lovely long bonnet.
Yeah.
And it's so beautifully shaped. So aerodynamic for those days. The scoop back is also amazing.
What we term as wheel arches these days, but the straight lines that went over the wheels, just, I think, iconic features of its design, which were just so splendid and beautiful. And I love these old, large steering wheels. I mean, that's something, every time I sit in an older car and I get that feel, I think it's really great. I think it's time for us to take a short drive in this car.
We will.
Yeah?
If I had to pick between the two, it would be this.
Your guys were just asking me as we were driving along, which is the car that you'd pick. Sadly, as nice as this car is, this one still steals your heart.
That's true.
It's just the sounds and the smells of these cars are just so much nicer than that's refined, but I don't know, this just gives you the feeling of having something special.
That's true.
Coming here, I was in the new SL and I was being a little worried about the speed breakers. And this one was just sailing over everything, unbothered, unfettered. I think these older cars have a lot of
plus points.
Yes. So what is it about this car that you enjoy when you drive it?
It's lovely. It's just the open top feel. The steering is light. The gear shifting is easy. Just a lovely and pleasant car to drive.
Like when you own one of these cars, do you often think of being back in the day with one of these cars and, how people were in those days?
Well, I haven't thought of it that way, but now that you speak about it, yes, you do see those movies and those films.
Yeah.
And you think of the old times.
Any films have inspired you to buy a car in your collection?
Maybe the old Mustang.
Oh, yeah. I know. That's a car that you kind of see and you want to have.
And there is a Mustang on the way.
Oh, wow. Okay, so there's horses with horses. Yeah.
That's true.
Well, it's time for the Racing Hearts Rapid Fire. And Yohan, we have something very special for you. But you're going to have to win it from me. Okay? I'm going to ask you a couple of fun questions and a couple of tricky ones.
Okay.
I'll start with the easier ones first. Combustion cars or electric vehicles?
Combustion.
Manual or automatic?
Depends.
Okay. Do you like nitrogen in your tires or do you fill regular air?
Regular.
What's your favorite driving song? When you go on a long drive, what's the song? What's the kind of music you listen to?
Never thought of that.
And this question always throws everybody. It's strange. Everybody listens to music in their car, but they don't give it a thought. I'm going to now ask you a couple of questions on Mercedes. Do you know the code of this car? Like, they have W118, W124.
You're asking me all tricky questions.
Yeah. Of course, I have to ask you tricky questions.
No.
No. So this was the W121. What's your all-time favorite car?
Depends on the occasion.
But did you have that? Do you have that one car that you're lusting after? I mean, that's the only word I can use because that's what I do when I get a car in my head.
The Bugatti Chiron.
So, vintage cars or modern day cars?
Depends again.
I think
vintage
you already
cars,
answered that for me actually. You said if I have to choose between these two.
I have to choose vintage cars.
Vintage cars.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. Okay, last question. Trickiest one yet. Where was the first tire invented?
Belfast.
See, now you win the hamper from me because you got the trickiest question right. So here's a special hamper from the Racing Hearts Rapid Fire presented by Vredestein Tyres.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Yohan, for being on History on Wheels, brought to you by Vredestein Tyres. It's been a real pleasure driving with you in this car and being on your beautiful stud farm.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being on your show.
And we're coming back to your garage sometime soon.
Anytime.